All right, good morning, Integrated 2. Today we are going to be solving quadratic equations using square roots. All right, so here's what we got. These are the examples that are on like the back side of that of the notes that you should have, and I'm just going to go ahead, work through these, and yeah, that's about it. All right. Okay. Oh shoot, I forget if I've mentioned this by now. I'm sure that a lot of you have probably seen. I think I mentioned, I forget, but all the test grades are in. We're pretty much caught up through topics 1 and 2. Everything's in there. So here's the thing: is I have not entered in zeros for those of you who have not taken the tests yet. The reason that I didn't do that is because I didn't want to tank everyone's grades right before the progress reports were due, because then all your parents are going to be mad and all of that. But I'm going to eventually have to go through and put those in. So the reason that I'm saying that is because if you haven't taken test 1 or test 2, you got to go back and take it. When you do take it, it'll be full credit, so don't worry about that. There's no penalty for being late on those tests. The only thing is I don't want it to be a situation where we get to the end of the semester and you're missing a few tests and all of a sudden your grade tanks and you're like, I don't even remember what we did back in Unit 1. So I'm going to do that because I want to encourage you. You got to take those tests now. Don't wait until the end of the semester when there's finals. If you're missing a test, go ahead and make it up. You'll get full credit. All right. And also, yeah, and you can retake tests as well. If you're not happy with your grade, by all means, talk to Mr. Sahota or Miss Moore and get a retake done, and I will get that in, and your grade will go up. All right, that's it. Let's get started on these. All right, so the idea is every time what we're going to want to do is isolate the thing that is being squared. So here's what that means. Is we're going to look for whatever is being squared, right? Right now, here in number 1, it's that x. That x is the thing with an exponent on it, right? That little 2, that's an exponent that's being squared. All right, and we want to get that all by itself. So to do that, we got to move that 81 over to the other side. So we're going to plus 81 on both sides. Oh wow, that was really disappointing. Plus 81 on both sides. So we will get x squared equals 81. All right, and then you're going to take the square root. That's all you got to do. So isolate the thing that's being squared and then take the square root. But remember, when you take a square root, it's going to be plus or minus. All right, so when I go and I take the square root of both sides, right, because I want to cancel out the squared, square root and squaring, they're opposites. Just like when I have a negative 81, so I add 81, because addition and subtraction are opposites. In the same way, squaring a number and square rooting it, those are opposites. So when I have something squared and I want to undo it, you're going to take a square root. All right, so the square root of x squared, again, that undoes each other, so that's going to be just x. And then the square root of 81, remember, a square root is asking what number times itself equals 81, right? So that's going to be 9, right? Because 9 times 9 is 81. And again, anytime you take a square root, it is plus or minus, right? And the reason for that is because negative 9 times negative 9, that also gives us 81, right? Because a negative times a negative is a positive. So whenever we're solving for x and we're taking a square root on both sides, you're going to end up with that plus or minus. All right, let's see some more examples. Number 2 here. So we're going to do those same steps. Whenever we've got a number now multiplied by the x squared, do your addition and subtraction first. This stuff you can write down, by the way. Do your addition and subtraction first, then divide out that number next. All right, so I'm going to do my additions first. I'm going to add my 180 to both sides. So I get 5x squared equals 180. And then we're going to do our division. Then we're going to divide out that 5. All right, so we'll divide both sides by 5. And 180 divided by 5 gives us 36. And then again, we're just going to take a square root on both sides. So that will give us x equals plus or minus 6. Right, because the square root of 36 is plus or minus 6. All right, let's see what else we got here. This one is interesting. Okay, so notice that we need to isolate the thing that is being squared. All right, so we are going to subtract. We're going to subtract 48 on both sides. Whoops. All right, remember we do our addition and subtraction first, and then we will do our multiplication and or division. All right, so we subtract 48 on both sides, and then we're going to divide out that 3. Same thing as last time, right? Number 2, we added the 180, then we divided by 5. So this time we're going to subtract the 48, and then we're going to divide out that 3. All right, so if I divide by 3 on both sides, I'm going to get x squared equals negative 16. All right, but here's the problem, right? There's no number that I can multiply by itself and end up with a negative number, right? Because 4 times 4 doesn't work because that's positive 16. Negative 4 times negative 4 also doesn't work because that's a positive as well. And you could maybe try to say, what about 4 times negative 4? Well, that doesn't work because that's not the same number because one's positive and one's negative. So there is actually no real solution to this. So we would say no real solution. And that will happen whenever we have a negative. Whenever we get that x all by itself and it's a negative on the other side, it is going to be no real solution. The reason I say no real solution is because there's imaginary numbers. I'm going to be honest, I don't believe that has been covered yet. If it has, send me a message and correct me and tell me that you know about imaginary numbers, but I believe that hasn't come along yet. So for now, don't worry about that. Even so, I'm not that worried about that right now. This is more about solving where I'm not really worried about that. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about when I say imaginary numbers, that's completely fine. If you do know what I'm talking about, let me know so I can include that in future videos. Because again, I'm new to California. I did my college in Nevada and all that stuff, so I'm not totally familiar with California curriculum. Because when I was in high school, even though that was just 4 or 5 years ago, I actually did not do integrated math. We had different math back then. Makes me feel old. Anyways, let's keep going. All right, so we're going to do the same thing here, right? We do our addition and subtraction first. So we're going to subtract 441 on both sides of our equal sign. And then we'll get negative 9x squared equals negative 441. And then we're going to do our multiplication or division. So we're going to divide out. Make sure we divide out that negative 9. Right? We got to get rid of the negative 2. And then we're going to end up with, so that will cancel out, and x squared equals negative 441 divided by negative 9. Let's see what that is. I think that's what is it? I'm trying to think in my head. 441 divided by 9. It's 49. All right. And that's going to give you x squared equals 49, right? Because notice, a negative divided by a negative makes a positive. So we will be able to solve this one. And again, as soon as you've got that x squared all by itself, take a square root. So it's really all you're doing. Do your addition, subtraction, and then do your division, and then take a square root. Those are your steps. You do your addition, subtraction, do your division, take a square root. All right. And then that gives us our final answer, x equals plus or minus 7. All right. And now we got a few more down here with some extra steps in them. All right, so we got x minus 7 squared equals 25. Okay, so here's what you want to notice, is that this thing is in parentheses, right? That means that the entire thing is being squared. So that 7, or that minus 7, that is part of the stuff being squared. So whenever we've got stuff that is inside parentheses, we need to take the square root first. Whenever you have addition or subtraction inside the parentheses, take the square root first, and then we can keep going after that. All right, so here's what that means. So we're going to take a square root on both sides. Take a square root, take a square root. So you're going to get x minus 7 equals, and then that's where we get our plus or minus. That square root of 25 is plus or minus 5. And that's going to split us off into 2 separate equations. All right, I'm actually going to leave myself some extra room. So you're going to get x minus 7 equals 5, or x minus 7 equals negative 5. All right, and we got 3 more examples of this, so you'll get the hang of it. And then again, it's just solve for x. So add 7 on both sides, you'll get x equals 12. And then on this one, we can add 7 on both sides, and you'll get x equals 2. So those are your 2 solutions right here. All right, let's keep going. Number 6. Okay, so this time, we've got a 2 out in front. All right, so whenever we have a number out in front of the parentheses, your step is going to be, this is again something you can write down, and you can also watch me work it out. Divide out whatever is in front. 2, take the square root. 3, split it into 2 equations like I just did, and then 4 is going to be do your addition and subtraction. You can pause the video if you want, write down those steps. All right, so number 1, we're going to divide that 2 out. What I mean by that is we're going to divide by 2 on both sides. So I get x plus 9 squared equals 18 divided by 2 is 9. That was step 1. That was step 2 I just said. We're going to take that square root. So let's take a square root on both sides. Square root, square root. All right. So that splits us into those 2 different equations now that I've taken a square root. So I get x plus 9, right? That's the stuff inside, equals a positive 3, right? That comes from the square root of 9, or x plus 9 equals negative 3, right? That plus or minus 3, those are coming from the square root of 9. It's basically saying that we're going to have 2 possible solutions here. Kind of like we've had this whole time, 2 solutions. Well, except for the one where there was no solution, but that's besides the point. All right. And then again, we're just going to solve for x. So subtract 9 on both sides. You'll get x equals negative 6. And then you'll subtract 9 on both sides over here. You'll get x equals negative 12. All right, 2 more. And then let's see what else we got. We're going to divide. So again, this is the same steps. Whenever we have parentheses and you've got a number out front, divide that number out first. Take care of that. Get that number out of here. All right, so we're going to do that. We're going to divide by 7 on both sides. Divide by 7. So we're going to end up with x minus 3 squared equals, what is that? 448 divided by 7. 64. All right, so that was step 1. Step 2 is we take a square root. So we're taking the square root. Step 3 is we're splitting it into 2 separate equations. So we'll get x minus 3 equals the positive square root, so 8, or x minus 3 equals the negative square root, so negative 8. And then again, we're just going to solve it. So we're going to add 3 on both sides, x equals 11. Add 3 on both sides, x equals negative 5. All right, 1 more, and then that's going to be it for the notes. Same steps. Step 1, divide out that number in front. So divide both sides by negative 4. So you'll get x plus 5 squared equals 4. Step 2, take a square root. Step 3, split it into 2 different equations. So you're going to get x plus 5 equals positive 2, x plus 5 equals negative 2. And then solve for x. Subtract 5 on both sides, you'll get negative 3. And then subtract 5 on both sides over here, and you'll get negative 7. And those are your 2 solutions. All right, that's the notes for today. Again, I'm going to go over the steps 1 more time. All right, so problems like number 1. There's no parentheses. The x is all by itself. You're going to add or subtract in first, and then 2, you're going to take a square root. Again, you can write these down. Problems 2, 3, and 4. All right, notice that we've got something added or subtracted, a number in front of the x, but no parentheses. Step 1, add or subtract. Step 2, do your division, divide out that number. Step 3, take the square root. All right, and then the rest of these, from 5 on down to 8, if there is a number, so this is for whenever there's parentheses. Whenever there's parentheses, if there's a number out front, first you're going to divide that number on both sides. Right? Like, for example, number 8, we divided the -4 on both sides. On number 6, we divided the 2 on both sides. All right? Second step is once you've got rid of that number, you take the square root, which quickly goes into step 3. You're going to split that into 2 different equations, right, using the positive and negative square roots. And then step 4 is usually going to be like one step away. You're just going to do the algebra and solve for x. All right, and you should expect 2 solutions when you do this. You're pretty much always going to get 2, except for when you get none. And that's it for the notes. Let me know if you have any questions.